Genocide. Been struggling not to commit genocide. Every time I play The Outer Worlds 2, I want to commit an interstellar holocaust. And I know that may sound a bit overly harsh as a review of the game. It's not meant to be. I mean it in the most endearing way possible. It's just every time I do anything in the game or talk to anyone in the video game, you just want to kill everyone in the game. That being said, I probably won't get around to that until the third playthrough. The first playthrough, I'm specializing in guns and speech and air quotes going the traditional heroic protagonist route. The second playthrough, maybe I'll spec a lot into medical and melee and go the less charitable route, but still overall leave the halcyon system of Arcadia better than I found it, and everyone happier than before my character was involved. However, in the third playthrough, I'm going to just fucking shoot everyone the moment I fucking meet them, unless it's somehow something that would make a soft lock in the game. Now, The Outer World 2, I got the early access on it. The Outer Worlds 1 was 40 gigabytes and it was a PS4. And I platinumed that game, I think. No, I don't think I platinumed it. Yeah, I definitely didn't platinum it. But I got quite a bit of the achievements. And I played it probably a couple dozen times through. Enough that the save files in that game glitched out on me quite a bit. Now, so far I had no such glitches or so with this game, but The Outer Worlds 2 is where Outer Worlds 1 was 40 gigabytes. The Outer World 2 is 110, nearly triple, and it's on a PS5. Now that being said, I would recommend it. I would recommend The Outer Worlds 2 as a video game for you to play. However, I will say this. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to beat The Outer Worlds 2 yet, but I've at least played the first few worlds of the game. If anything, it's said that it takes about 30 hours to beat The Outer Worlds 1, and apparently, according to stuff on Google, it's about 50 plus, so the story and as well as side quests and stuff, all in all, takes twice as much time to get through. Also, definitely your specs are very different. In The Outer Worlds 1, it's more very, very similar to the special system that we all know and love from the Fallout video games. And keep in mind, this series is made by Obsidian. This one, the specs and perks are very different than what you saw in The Outer Worlds 1 or the Fallout games. Now, that being said, it's certainly unique, and it's not bad. And the combat's not terrible. However, it definitely feels like it has less of a punch to it. Heck, I think Fleekazoid said it best when he compared Doom Eternal to Doom the Dark Ages. That it just feels a bit sanitized. Though I imagine Fleekazoid worded it very differently, but you'd have to watch his video on the Doom the Dark Ages to get the appropriate way he worded it. He words it in a much more funny and lively way than I do, whereas I'm more of a languid, sort of not even cruise control setting of cringe. So, that being said, certainly check out his channel. He's hilarious. Now, that being said, he was making quite a few jokes about the Doomslayer being a femboy, and I made jokes myself from videos I made around that time about, it's like a Felix Argyle or the Doomslayer. One day somebody's going to make fan art of Felix Argyle in like the Doom armor in a way that's unmistakably Felix, but still fucking badass. But I will say this. I would still recommend The Outer Worlds 2. And like I said, I'm not even halfway through the first playthrough. But I'm planning to at least probably do like 10 playthroughs of this game. Now, on the third playthrough, I'm killing everyone the moment I fucking see them. That being said, I'm enjoying the game. Now, granted, many of the characters' dialogue choices, both your character and even, well, everyone else in the entire game, in both ways that were intentional and in ways that were not intentional by the developers, no matter how heavy-handed their writing is. Every thought, every feeling, every interaction, every expression, and every I don't even know the right word to say what I'm going to say, but just every existence of the NPCs, whether they're just background NPCs you casually talk to once or twice, or the characters that are your companions. They're so fucking insufferable and so fucking stupid. And yes, I understand part of it's the writing, in regards that they're trying to write the characters to be a certain way. And I get that. It still irritates me. That being said, I can tell there's things that they didn't intend. Or times where you feel like your choices have less impact than, say, the end of Mass Effect 3. By the way, I would still like to see an active modding community for Mass Effect 2 and 3. In fact, I think it would have been interesting to see an alternate version of Mass Effect 2 where the Elusive Man didn't get fucking railroaded into, well, making very stupid decisions in the latter half or third of Mass Effect 2, and of course, him becoming the bad guy in the third game. Now, granted, that's still very interesting, and it works for the story after all. It's the same indoctrination, infrasound stuff as with Saren. But heck, at that point, why not a version of Mass Effect 3 where, okay, the Elusive Man's still the bad guy, but maybe we can actually convince him early on in the story to, not be the bad guy. Or heck, why can't we join him? Or, heck, what about Mass Effect 1? How about a version of the story where we could actually convince Saren to stop being the bad guy earlier on in this game. Or join him. Though that's less interesting to me. Though it still is very clear to say that the elusive man had good motivations and was doing well. Now, yes, obviously there's the indoctrination of the Reapers, the Harvester dude, and, well, Harbinger, whatever, and all the stuff with that. And yes, that's still an important story, though no matter what, even with the added DLCs they tried to do to fix the ending of that, I still feel that the ending of it is less than satisfying. The Outer Worlds 2. My main verdict on that is the worlds feel less alive than the Outer Worlds 1. It feels like the worlds and the characters are less alive, have less personality, are more insufferable. And it feels that the combat doesn't really have as much punch to it. And by that, I think a good way to describe it is the original Fear game, First Encounter Assault Recon. The way the shotguns and the nail gun felt when you played the very first Fear. Then again, we are getting another remake of the Halo series. It'll even be on the PS5. I look forward to that, and I hope it's very enjoyable. Though I don't know when it'll be made. Apparently there's also supposed to be another Halo after that as well, where they continue the story. But I have no idea how they could continue the story. But my main suggestion for anyone out there in regards to the Outer Worlds is that while I would recommend that you buy the Outer Worlds 2, I would say that if you have not played the Outer Worlds 1, play that first. You absolutely should get 5 full playthroughs of the Outer Worlds 1 before you ever touch the Outer Worlds 2. Now that being said, the Outer Worlds 1 certainly was a bit heavy-handed with a lot of the anti-corporate themes it goes with, but I feel they did it very well, and generally every point they made is something you can agree with. Whereas in the second one, it feels I know this isn't the right way to say it, but not paced correctly, not put. It's like it feels like it's too blunt, but also not done tactfully. But for what it is, I think it still works. Beyond that, I would still say it's a good game, but I certainly enjoyed the first one a lot more. And again, I would suggest that if you have not played the Outer Worlds 1, play that one at least 5 times through before you ever try the Outer Worlds 2. But then I would suggest, yes, you should give the Outer Worlds 2 a try. In fact, I'd be interested to see people like Asmongold and other people play the game. Though I would say one thing that I would imagine most streamers would not do. In fact, I tend to avoid it as much of a avid reader as I am, because I'm somebody who wants to read basically just about everything. Bruce Campbell would hate me because I'd probably read the Necronomicon if I was in the Evil Dead series. That being said, if I'm doing a Let's Play, I tend to avoid reading lore to a degree because, well, I already tend to make long, tangential videos anyway. I seem to have less ability to focus. But main point is, while I find the lore and stuff fascinating, well, my videos are boring to begin with, but I feel like it's not something that anybody even that does want to watch any of my videos would want to see. Same as like that when I do try certain games, like the Vampire Survivors or the Mega Bonk or the I Am Magial, I just sort of zone out and enjoy the game. Don't get me wrong, I'm still enjoying the game, but I'm just quiet and I'm not really reading anything, and I just I'll still read the stuff, but I'll be reading it quietly in my head, and of course you're able to read much faster when you're not having to articulate everything out loud for a microphone. And of course, a lot of times I can always take feedback on, like, if there's a game I'm playing and people would like me to spend more time on lore, or to, like, say if I'm not reading certain things out in full, suggest that I should read it. But again, everything's up to my discretion or mood at that time. But it doesn't mean I'm not taking the suggestions into account. It just means I'm a bit fickle about how I proceed with how I do my videos. The videos are literally me being without a filter, so while I do take suggestions, I'm going to do whatever comes naturally, even though that may seem very unnatural to everyone else. So, yay, just be me, as unusual and odd as that is. But, yeah. The Outer Worlds 2. I like the game. I think the game is good. I would certainly suggest to anyone that has already played The Outer Worlds 1 that you should absolutely buy The Outer Worlds 2. Now, I will say this about The Outer Worlds 1. I very much enjoyed the base game, but the 2 DLCs that eventually came with it I thought were garbage. Now, there will eventually be DLCs with this game. I hope they are much better. I will also say that all of the presets for the characters look ugly as fuck. And granted, yes, there's other video games I can play if I want hot, beautiful women with giant titties. And of course, while we shouldn't have Cortana censored in the Halo video game to make her more safe and amicable to, people that are, I guess, upset at cleavage, you also can't go the Lunar D8 route and just have Cortana be like from hentai and have just giant titties, nipples out, and even futa. Just can't do that. It's like, okay, Lunar D8 has remade Halo. There's cat girls and cat boys everywhere. There's a naked Astolfo. There's Felix Argyle as the Doomslayer. Cortana's got triple D titties. Everything's naked. Jiggle physics everywhere like a fucking vTuber. And she's also futa with a big hard cock and fat nuts. Oh, might as well just say Sylvia from Konosuba. But, yeah. I will say this about The Outer Worlds 2. There's a aspect of the game mechanics that remind me of the 2 best games ever made for the PS1, the PlayStation 1. Video games that came out technically in 1997, though the second game I list on this, there could be considered an exception to this. It's technically the original version of it was actually made for an N64. But I considered a different version. Same as technically Blam Machine Head was made for PS1 and Sega Saturn, as was Sonic 3D Blast. However, there's a chemical that's kind of a noxious gas. It's the stand-in for, Fallout's radiation poisoning. It's called Zyranium gas, and it's green, bright green glowing crystals that provide energy that produce noxious fumes that are deadly. Now, the very best video game ever made for the PlayStation 1 came out in 1997. It came with 2 discs. The second disc was a demo disc of Final Fantasy VIII. But the main game disc, which you can tell from the game itself that the developers of the game wanted to include more, but had to deal with the limitations of the PS1 as well as memory limitations of how much you could store on a single PS1 disc. Brave Fencer Musashi. 1997 this game came out. Or 1998. Somewhere around there. Has beautiful orchestral music, beautiful brushstroke art, like painting style characters, a wonderful 3D world that was, I feel, revolutionary for that time, and I liked the polygonal style as much as I feel many people out there who were fans of the original Resident Evil and Silent Hill still prefer those versions of the games to the remakes. That being said, in that game, there are large green crystals called binchotite that also exist in a form called bincholon. And these also produce noxious liquids and fumes that can kill people, that are used for power and energy, whether it be magic or science. I think it's also worth noting that the other great game made for the PS1, Mega Man Legends, perhaps the best Mega Man game ever made, with Mega Man Volnut, has the refractors, which I feel very much also fit in that same vein. So I feel that's something I found very interesting. The other thing is, like, there's no romance mechanic in the Outer Worlds 2, which, you know what, I'm grateful for, because I don't really want to fuck any of the people in the game. That being said, while there was no romance mechanic in the Outer Worlds 1, I did not lament that. But I do have to say that there were certainly a few characters that I thought were very pretty and attractive. I don't feel like I really can say that very much for the characters in Outer Worlds 2. That being said, that's not why we're playing that game. And of course, if I do want that, there's other things I can get that out of. Heck, I can even watch ASMR videos on YouTube. For what the Outer Worlds 2 is, I'm not going to say it does it well, because it doesn't. But I like it. It's a good game. It's still enjoyable, and I think it's a good experience. And I know I got sidetracked earlier when I was saying that it'd be a good thing for streamers to play this game. But the thing is this, I think the important thing, like I was saying, is that as much as it might slow down, the excitement of the game, I think it's important to read the lore, as well as all of the terminals, the computers, to read the messages, the emails, correspondence between the characters and other characters, because I feel a lot of what's said in those messages on just text is perhaps some of the best writing in the game, both in terms of actually making sense and actually getting the theme across. Though at that point we are having essentially competing factions of a capitalist mixed with socialist, sort of Mussolini Italian fascist state sort of thing going on in place of corporate stuff, and pushing extreme, shallow materialism and even the aspects of not being traditional, feminism, and just a lot of degeneracy, but in all the ways that would not even appeal to people that like fan service in games. Like, the best way to put it is, like, there's anime and video games that have so much fan service and titties in your face, but it's done in a way that doesn't detract from the story and is tasteful. Whereas this, not only do you not have any beautiful or interesting people when it comes to that, but things are still portrayed in a tasteless way. So, as opposed to you having beautiful characters that are presented in a tasteful way that isn't, taking away from the story, and this stuff is the other thing is that then you have the Protectorate, which is like the USSR. It's like we're it's like we're listening to the inner workings of the mind of Stalin's Russia. Like, all these things about report your neighbors, report your neighbors. It's like stuff straight out of 1984, George Orwell, or even actual history of, the Soviet Union. Though I do get the impression that it's intended by the writers to make people like very anti-capitalism sort of thing, and very I guess a lot of policies that would be considered like MAGA sort of stuff. Heck, I'm pretty sure the one AC character that shares the same initials as Auntie Cleo, I'm pretty sure his voice is supposed to be an impression of Donald Trump. But I feel like the point they're trying to make kind of falls flat on its face, and more so just makes the opposite point of what they're trying to do. Like, I feel at the end, like, the overall meaning like I'm getting out of the game is that I should support Trump more, and that traditional families and tradition and all of that's much better. And also, it just seems like a lot of the characters are just not really making logical decisions. And I understand some of the characters are dumb or fanatical or making dumb decisions as part of the story. But I feel like it's just but I'm obviously not wording this correctly. I think other people could play it for themselves. But either way, I would say this. I don't think it takes away from the enjoyment of playing the game. Because after all, keep in mind, it's fiction. They're essentially drawings of bits of data, zeros and ones on your game console. It's a story. And the whole point of a story in a video game is just to enjoy it. After all, you're escaping into another world, another solar system. After all, you really don't need to worry about politics or some other bullshit, when you're having your escapism. That being said, your escapism in this game is really trying to make itself about politics. But I would say my best advice for enjoying the game is just don't take it too seriously. And if anything, just look at it more like satire, because to a large degree it is. though I don't think it's satire in the way they intended. But I will say this. I would say if you haven't played the Outer Worlds one, play that one first, like 5 times. But don't worry about the DLCs, though. They're garbage. But the main game's good. Also play Fear. But I would say the Outer Worlds 2, you should definitely play after the Outer Worlds 1. But I would still recommend you buy it. Now, beyond that, today I decided to drive out to a really big city. Bit of a drive, mind you, but hey, I have CDs to listen to in the car. Though I really don't tend to go outside or do too much very often. In terms of far drives, I'm kind of antisocial. That being said, went out, stopped at a restaurant, though everybody I saw at the restaurant just, granted, none of them really seemed to even acknowledge I existed, but all of them looked so fucking depressed. Even the people that were there as groups or parties or even couples, they all seemed so fucking miserable. Like, I don't think I really saw anything that made me feel faith in humanity. I will say this, though, about the Outer Worlds thing. If I really wanted to see ugly characters in a video game, I would just go look in the mirror. Heck, if anything, the background I chose for this, on the left, you have what I look like IRL, and on the right is what I represent myself on the internet as. But yeah, after that, I went to the mall because I was in that area. It is October 26, 2025, 7:46 p.m. right now. And the last time I went to the mall before today, I think, was back in like May. That being said, I think the American shopping mall is dying. Like, maybe like 80% of the stores there were completely closed down. And in general, there was less people there. Granted, it's Sunday, and to a degree, I like that there's less people. And I made conversations with people in various stores. The people in Hot Topic talked about a few things, and heck, there was a person in a game store at a mall that I was talking to about AI and various video game lores like Grand Theft Auto and Halo. Beyond that, yawning, I'm tired. I gotta go to bed soon. But at least I don't have to work tonight. But yeah, I also stopped in a little place that had a bunch of puppy dogs. And there's like a middle-aged black guy there, and I mentioned him about Steam. And he had never heard about Steam before. He asked how much it costs. I'm like, I know, Steam's free. But I explained to him, like, hey, you can get a ton of games. Some usually on sale. So, also bought some things as presents for my mother and my son. Beyond that, heck, there's a little playground area inside the place. Granted, it was desolate at the moment because, well, it's Sunday. And also the American shopping mall is dying. That being said, I remember a long, long time ago when the design of that place was different. Granted, I was still married when it got remodeled, and to the remodel, I was able to take my son to a couple times. In fact, there's a little thing in the middle where it's got a little tiny staircase and a slide. And I just was standing there next to it looking at it, watching an imaginary version of my son back when he was that age, climbing up the staircase and going down the ladder. I was actually moving my eyes and moving my head, you know, watching a memory. Granted, he's much taller than that now. But yeah, I at least watched the imaginary version of him run around, play, and climb up those stairs and slide down that slide at least 4 times. Beyond that, though I imagine I would have looked really weird if somebody was there watching me. Just a random man standing in the middle of an empty playground, moving his head and eyes, watching thin air. Because, I imagine that would be a little bit odd to other people, just a person watching a memory and looking at thin air and just moving his head and watching something move where it's just, I'm just watching a memory. But yeah, I just watched the imaginary version of my son walking around and playing, climbing up the stairs and sliding down the slide, then going back around and going up the stairs again and going down the slide. Beyond that, it's also looking around, gauging the size of the play area, because the old version before they remodeled it was bigger, and whereas that one's just got the little slide and a few interactive things here and there. The way it was before, I thought was much better. It was much bigger, and the ground was much softer. It had like a space shuttle and a bunch of planets and stuff. I remember myself and my son had a lot of fun playing like that. And I'd be down on my hands and knees crawling around with him, and to a large degree learned how to walk there, just because that way if he were to fall it wouldn't be as dangerous. But of course, made it easier for him to learn to walk in other places too. But it's just, it was a place to play with him, and he had a lot of fun. Though honestly, I liked the one with the planets and the space shuttle stuff better. But of course, like I said, they remodeled it. Probably to make more space for swords and through traffic. But yeah, I just stood there for a while, just watching the imaginary version of my son playing on the slide. And I'm not saying I'm like fucking hallucinating, seeing stuff. I'm just more like just thinking very strongly of a memory and just watching that memory playing. But yeah, after that, I went to the movie theater and I watched the Chainsaw Man movie, the Reze arc. By the way, I do have to say I find it very interesting that the characters that are devils that are women, that their boobs get much bigger in their devil form. I'm not complaining, rather the opposite. Now, that being said, the movie was like an hour and 40 minutes, rated R. Also, It's got a lot of flashing lights in certain spots, so if you have epilepsy, it will probably kill you. That being said, in every regard, I thought it was an absolutely wonderful movie. And that's not even counting the fact that it was in 3D. The movie was in 3D, and I think the 3D was done very, very well. But I do have to say, even ignoring the 3D aspect, which I do say the 3D aspect definitely added to the experience and made it even better, and I thought the 3D was done very well, as was the music and the sound, I will say this. Even without that kick-ass soundtrack and the 3D, I thought it was an absolutely amazing movie. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. I thought it was absolutely fucking awesome. Well, this is mainly supposed to be a review of the Outer Worlds 2 game and of the movie, though I spent most time about the Outer Worlds 2. In general, the main thing I have to say is the Outer Worlds 2, definitely read all the lore, read all the message terminals, and keep things like 1984 or, Stalin's Russia and the USSR in mind, as well as all that when you're listening to the people talk about the various slogans and stuff, especially the whole redactions thing, like, again, 1984. But I think if you take it as like imagining how George Orwell would react to all of it, I think it actually makes it more enjoyable for you. But above all, it's just a video game. Enjoy your escapism. Heck, you want good games for escapism? Dot Hack Sign, which is an anime, has a video game, Dot Hack Infection. Now, technically, there's also a Dot Hack GU series, but the original Dot Hack games are much better. So, if anything, I would recommend. Heck, the original series is 4 games, but if anything, I would say playing one game is already going to be a very immersive experience. Heck, I'd recommend the original Shining Force for the Sega Genesis, as well as Shining Force EXA for the PS2. Also Dragon Quest VIII, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy V. Heck, Star Ocean Till the End of Time, Wild Arms 3, Grandia 3, Dragon Quest VIII. But yeah, Star Ocean Till the End of Time. It's really good. Heck, if you ever get the chance, look up Ultra J, man. Watch his playthrough of I Want to Be the Guy. But yeah, it's just the Outer Worlds 2. I'll tell you this, to a degree, you'll feel a bit disappointed about a few things. But I would say, no matter what, play the first game first. And if you have played the first game and you enjoyed it, you should still play the second game. I would recommend you buy it. And I would say the Chainsaw Man movie, the Reze arc, it's an absolutely amazing movie. Beyond that, I suppose a personal feeling of mine. There's a thing, according to science, Apparently, people need 20 hugs a day to feel good mental health. Apparently, human psychology, a person requires 20 hugs with someone they feel safe with and cared about that are also usually lasting about 20 seconds each. But a person needs 20 hugs a day in order to have just normal/good mental health. I don't really remember what a hug really feels like. I really don't think I ever will. Heck, to a large degree, I feel like I have to eventually come to terms with just accepting the truth. And that is that hugs just aren't real.